When I was 19, I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. Literally not a clue. I was in college at the time just because my parents pressured me to go, and I was studying subjects that I wasn't even interested in, barely passing my classes. Eventually, I ended up taking a gap year to work and try to figure things out. This decision turned out to be one of the best choices in my life because of two things. If you currently feel lost in life, then you really should be doing these two things if you ever want to figure things out. So pay close attention. The first thing you have to do is work on your fundamentals. There are certain skills that will drastically increase your chances of success at whatever it is that you want to do later in life. So it's always a good idea to spend some time honing these skills if you don't really know what you should be doing in the big picture. See, when I dropped out of college, I ended up working in the world of sales. I basically just walked around and talked to people for like 10 hours a day. And because of this, I ended up honing my social skills, and I also learned how to work my butt off. These two things eventually allowed me to find success later in life when I realized that my passion was teaching and creating content. It was actually a good thing that I didn't know what I wanted to do until later in my life. Right? Because let's say I had full clarity back when I was 16 years old, back when I was just a shy, awkward kid who played video games all day. Let's say I knew that I wanted to become a YouTuber back then. The chances of me succeeding would have been much, much lower, at least tenfold. Because back then, my social skills were terrible, so I wouldn't have been able to write and speak well. Back then, my teaching skills were non-existent, so I wouldn't have been able to teach well. And to top all of that off, back then, I didn't have a good work ethic, so there's no way I would have been able to commit 10 to 20 hours every week to creating videos. If my 16-year-old self had embarked on this journey back then, he would have probably spent a whole year creating just a handful of videos, which would have probably received only a couple dozen views. He would have then felt upset about the lack of results, and then he would have lost motivation for the entire project, thinking that maybe this wasn't something that he was so passionate about after all. See, the thing is, in order for you to succeed at something that you are passionate about, you do need to see some degree of progress and success, or else you will lose motivation pretty fast. Now, I'm not talking about like a viral video on your first try, but maybe like a couple hundred or a couple thousand views after making 10 videos. Which is why it's always a good idea to work on your fundamentals first, so that when you do figure out what you're passionate about, you have a much higher chance of actually seeing some sort of success, which will end up motivating you to do more work, which will make you even more successful. Now, at this point in time, you're probably wondering, okay, what are the fundamental skills? Well, they basically fall under three categories. Your goal should be to find work or experiences that would help you develop as many of these skills as possible. First, you got the work ethic skills, because you won't be able to succeed at whatever you're passionate about unless you know how to work for long periods of time on that specific thing. So this includes things like increasing your focus, being able to work your butt off for hours, being able to handle rejection, patience, and emotional regulation. Second, you have the digital skills, which relates to anything that would allow you to create content online, because everything is online nowadays. It doesn't matter what your passion might be. Chances are you'll need to do something online with that passion in order to succeed. So this includes things like being able to grow on social media platforms, creating websites, any form of film, art, editing, and marketing in general. And finally, there are the social skills. The better you are at making friends, getting your thoughts across, and working with others, the more success you'll see. This is a must-have for any sort of business or career path that you eventually want to go down. This includes things like charisma, attraction, persuasion skills, working with a team, writing, and even how fluent you are with certain languages. You see, the world is eventually going to have one shared language in the future, and it's probably going to be English. And if you want to be able to make a decent living with your future passion, then you definitely need to become fluent in English in order to tap into the most profitable market in the world. The second thing you have to do if you are lost in life is to gather as many new experiences as possible. When I was working in sales, I was exposed to hundreds of new things. I interacted with thousands of people. I went into their homes and learned about their lives. I had different roles in my company. I started off focused solely on the sales, and then my focus became teaching, and it eventually evolved into leading a team. And over time, I started to realize that the part that I enjoyed the most out of all these new experiences was training people. This is something that I would have never guessed that I would enjoy. It was something that I stumbled upon only because I exposed myself to hundreds of different experiences. And chances are you have multiple hidden passions like this in your life as well. The only catch is that you got to explore the world in order to stumble upon these things. So if you spent your entire life in school, or if you've been spending the last couple of years at the same job, then you really need to get out there and try out new things if you ever want to figure out what it is that you want to do. Go get a part-time job in a retail store, go work on a construction site, go volunteer at a soup kitchen, try out things that offer completely new experiences so that you can increase your chances of finding something that you are actually interested in. Maybe when you start working construction, you realize you love managing projects. Maybe when you work in retail, you realize you love chatting with customers. Maybe when you volunteer in the soup kitchen, you realize you like cooking for others. You only need to spend a couple of weeks doing these things in order to be exposed to the dozens of small experiences that come with them. This gives you enough time to spot any hints as to where your passions might lie, all while helping you build up fundamental skills at the same time. And that's basically what you should be doing if you are lost in life. You need to expose yourself to as many new experiences as possible, all while building up your fundamental skills so that when you do figure things out, you'll have a much higher chance of success. This is what worked for me, and I hope it works for some of you as well. Besides that, guys, stay tuned.